Hello everybody, this is Moses from Wilona's Cave. We are going to continue the story of Hackleswell in Dragonbane and his adventure. Now, in the previous episode, before Hackleswell, our mallard scholar veteran hero, went to his old friend's farmhouse, he decided to forage for herbs that he could use to create a sleep potion so he could ingest it himself to try and help his chronic insomnia and get rid of his nightmares, hopefully. He found the herbs, but he doesn't have the means to create the tincture. He wants to ask his friend at the farmhouse if he can make it for him. We rolled on the fortune chart to see what the reaction of his friend would be, and we rolled on hostile, unfortunately. So let's continue the story now. So just a reminder, these post-its are where I'm rolling, and I just want to cover them up so you don't see everything that happens before it happens. Hackleswell was pretty close to the farmhouse, but on his way walking to the farmhouse, the sun started to rise. So now it is morning. But before the sun rose, Hackleswell sat down and ate a food ration. So now his food rations that are left is 2. That's all he has left. And he just basically crossed the river. He did not waste time making camp since he knew he would have trouble sleeping. So he just kept on walking to his old friend's farmhouse. So Hackleswell has sleep deprivation, so because he didn't make camp, he didn't go to sleep, so that's another shift, the morning shift, that's another shift of no sleep. So I had to roll a d6 to see how many WP, willpower points, he lost, and I rolled a 6. So now he's down to 1 WP out of 17. We just crossed the river, and this is how bad sleep deprivation can be. We just crossed the river, that's all we've done since Outskirt, and we've lost pretty much all our WP. I don't even think 1 could even be used. So now he arrived at the farmhouse. He knocks on the front door. His friend opens the door, basically says, happy to see you, old friend, and yada yada, continues. I haven't seen you in so long. Come on in. It's cold outside. Come on in. I'm thinking like in Skyrim, I'm thinking that the farmhouse looks like this when we walk in. That'll be pretty cool, huh? I don't know how safe that is with children running around the fire pit in the middle, but maybe imagine there's a gate around that. Like a gate around a pool, there's a gate around the fire pit. So Hackleswell walks in, and his friend closes the door. The whole family was at the table, waiting eagerly for their breakfast. Hackleswell is offered a seat, of course, thankfully as well, and he sits down. So he mentions that he just consumed a food ration outside the farm. Now, this is where I started rolling for my first NPC in Dragonbane. If I remember, I'll put something up on the screen so you can see what I was looking at or rolling on. It was on page 106. So the attitude, I didn't roll, no roll. I rolled on friendly. If you went to a friend's house that's already hostile towards them, that doesn't make any sense. So Hackleswell's friend, attitude friendly. Kin is a dwarf, so I rolled a 2. Motivation, escaping a dark past. So this dwarf has a dark past. Profession, mage. So a dwarf mage. That's pretty cool. When I read that, I went, that could lead to a lot of cool things. Trait, talks too much. Name, Olgrid. I like that name, Olgrid. But I think in the book it's spelled incorrectly. Because when I looked up that name to find the meaning of the name from the book, I couldn't find it. It said, do you mean this name? So I'm not too sure if that's a typo. I submitted it, but we'll see what happens. Maybe they already sent the book to print already for printing. I'm not too sure. So now they're at the table. Olgrid tells Hackleswell to take a seat at the table. He then takes a seat near Olgrid. Olgrid notices how tired Hackleswell is and tells him, you look like you haven't slept in weeks, my friend. So remember, he's been having chronic problems. He hasn't been missing sleep on his travels. He wasn't sleeping well before his travels. Then I don't know why I covered up this. It's this role of Olgrid's wife. Olgrid's wife's name is Tora. I like that name, Tora. Tora notices how sickly he looks as well. She gasps and heads to the kitchen. So here's the kitchen. I had to look through a lot of images to try to picture how I can make a kitchen feel warm in the medieval times, and also skinny enough to fit through this. I was so caught up in the story, I started writing here. You can see some erase marks here. I started writing, I go, wait, I want to put in a drawing on this page, so I had to erase a whole bunch of it and put it in the other page. So that's why this drawing is so skinny. So when I'm in this image, in this picture, I'm thinking of the smell of potatoes. And potatoes are very earthy. They smell like the soil they came out of. It can fill the whole room. So the kitchen just smells like fresh potatoes. So that's what I'm envisioning when I see that kitchen right there. Nice warm, just nice warm kitchen. Not, well, just imagine that's Torah. Just staring at me. God, they're so weird sometimes. Okay, now time for the fun stuff. So I love to use tarot cards, and I have a really cool set. I collect a lot of them as well, but I have a really cool set of Lord of the Rings. So I used it to help generate a narrative of how Hackleswell can get over this illness, because we do know that Ulgrid is going to be hostile to Hackleswell. I mentioned in the last video that he might even kick him out of the house. That didn't make sense. I shouldn't have said that. I was trying to exaggerate how angry Ulgrid can be, but I don't think he would kick him out of the house. So he might offer a different opinion or different idea or etc. But it has to all start with Hackleswell. And if it's insomnia, there's something happening within him that he needs to change. So that's why I went to the tarot cards. So I'll put on the screen right now the tarot cards that I drew. Some are upright and some are reversed. If you do not know how to read tarot cards, I'll show a little bit on the screen of how you can do it. But I put out the cards in the second breakfast setup. This is in the Lord of the Rings booklet that they give you. So this is the second breakfast. If you find yourself in need of nourishment or are feeling drained, which he is, that's why I chose this, this spread can help you identify how you reclaim your energy. Perfect. That's exactly what Hackleswell needs. Now, card 1. I'll put card 1 on the screen right now. Card 1. So card 1 on the upper left. This card represents what is blocking your energy or distracting you. So you have to keep that in mind when you draw that card. This card represents what is blocking your energy or distracting you. And I drew the Hermit. Now it was upright. The Hermit invites you to retreat from your everyday life, pause your routine, release your responsibilities, and give yourself time to access your own needs. Schedules have a way of smothering ideation. By reclaiming unstructured time, you can gain perspective. So the notes I wrote for that are: Hackleswell is noble, closed, and reserved. He does not like to ask for help. It was proven with Hollamar, the elf in Outskirt in the tavern. Hollamar, we had a roll for Hollamar to see if he would even offer a gift, because he's afraid that Hackleswell will get angry and say, I don't need your help. So that fits. He needs to be honest with himself. His willpower is low. He just started his journey. He just crossed the river, and already he has no more willpower. So he needs to be honest with himself, meaning he can't continue like this. It's not going to work. He's not going to get to the waterfall. He strives to be punctual, but needs to slow and gain perspective. So he likes to be on time, which we've mentioned before in the series, but he needs to step back and say, can I feasibly do this? He's getting older. Yes, he is a hero, but his age is catching up with him, especially not sleeping is compounding on that. So card number 2 was drawn. This card represents how you can overcome it. So how you can overcome card number 1. Now I drew card number 2, and it was reversed strength, which is Gimli. So it's reversed. So being strong doesn't mean you have to prove it every moment of your day. Just because you're feeling defensive, which he does, doesn't mean you're being attacked. Don't let your temper, and by the way, he has temper. Hackleswell, all mallards have temper. That's one of their traits. If you use WP, you can use anger to get a boon, I believe, on your rolls. But now you have an anger condition. Ill-tempered. I think they were thinking of Donald Duck when they created this. Don't let your temper and ego outweigh your intellect. Take a step back and examine your motives before you turn friends into opponents. So, the notes I wrote for that. Strength reversed. Mallards have an ability called ill-tempered. Hackleswell needs to swallow his pride and control his temper. He needs to be vulnerable and allow friends to help him. Card number 3. This card represents where you should be focusing your energy. So card number 3 was drawn, and it was the Chariot upright. I believe it's Samwise in this picture. So the Chariot upright, the path to Mordor, the waterfall, was filled with danger, but Samwise, Hackleswell, forged ahead because he said he would. Like the brave hobbit, Mallard, if you remain determined and banish self-doubt, you will reach your destination. Now the notes I wrote for that, the Chariot upright, Hackleswell needs to believe in himself. Don't focus on doubt, but focus on persevering. Card number 4. This card represents how you can recharge your body. So card number 4 is 10 of Wands, reversed. Samwise may not have been able to carry the One Ring for Frodo, but when his friends struggled, Samwise carried him. Let the Samwise in your life lift you up. You don't have to do everything yourself. So the One Ring in this case is the sunflower head carved out of wood. So the notes I wrote for that, the 10 of Wands reversed, Hackleswell must let his friends help him. By letting his friends help him, he can focus on what matters most and begin healing. And then finally, card number 5. This card represents how you can recharge your mind. And the card drawn for card number 5 was 9 of Wands, reversed. Do you find yourself looking over your shoulder, wondering when trusted friends became enemies? The 9 of Wands, reversed, warns you to banish these thoughts. Your anxiety is taking hold of your good sense. Instead of worrying, take stock of all your supporters. Rejoice in your resources and use them to get back on track. So the note that I wrote for card 5 is Hackleswell must stop thinking that the people around him have bad intentions. So all this is centering around, all these cards, coincidentally, were pretty much centering around healing and having your friends help you. So he's already told Palomar no for help on the journey, and now he's going to his other friend's house, Olgrid, and probably will say no a lot, but he needs to know that within himself he needs to ask for help. So now we're at table continued. So Tora, Olgrid's wife, returns with a hot cup of mint tea and gives it to Hackleswell. They all eat a warm breakfast, all of the children head outside to play and work on their farm duties. Hackleswell took this opportunity to ask Olgrid, right away, I wanted to ask Olgrid right away, to help him make a sleep poison. Olgrid became very angry. There was a lot of yelling, commotion, even probably stuff being thrown. Olgrid's wife, Tora, left the kitchen, left the dining area, but stood behind the wall to listen in on what's happening. So before the argument got worse, I decided to just take a chance and roll on persuasion, but his persuasion is rather low. I have to roll a 6 or under on a d20 to be able to persuade Olgrid that, on my intentions, explaining why would I want to take a poison? Why would Hackleswell, want to take a poison? Why would he ever want to do that? And he's going to try his best. Now, he explained that I can't sleep, I can't eat. Ever since the tragic event that happened, I can't think anymore. And while he's explaining this story, Olgrid's wife is around the corner behind a wall and she's holding back tears. She's covering her mouth, trying to not gasp and, crying out loud. She's trying to hold back tears, but she still wants to hear his side of the story because Hackleswell has never talked about it really before, ever, to anyone. He just, basically, when it happened, he just didn't even accept hugs. He just walked away from everybody. And they want to help him. And because of his touching story, he rolled a 2, and it was a success. So he needed a 6 or under, and he rolled a 2. So the story that he told Olgrid helped, and Olgrid could sense all the sorrow in Hackleswell, and he just let down his guard and said, I'm not going to throw you out of the house, basically. I'm going to calm down. Now I understand you finally opening up. Now I understand what you're going through, old friend. So like I wrote, Hackleswell opened up and told Olgrid everything that he's going through and that he needs help with. The wife, at this moment, the wife ran away, though. The wife, Tora, was not there anymore. She couldn't hold back the tears anymore, hearing everything, and she ran away so she could cry, probably outside. She didn't want to cry, or she didn't want them to know that she was eavesdropping as well. Olgrid saw the sorrow in his old friend's eyes. He was close to telling him to leave, but he decided to help him. So Hackleswell kept talking and stated that it took all that he had just to get across the river. All the willpower he had. He has nothing left in him. He has no more perseverance. He has no more strength, inner strength, mental strength. He can't do it anymore. So Olgrid said, I can't help you. I'm not going to roll on it. Olgrid's not going to help. We already rolled on hostile. You don't roll from hostile to say, okay, I'm going to help you make a sleep poison. So Olgrid said, I'm going to help you in other ways. I can't help you with the sleep tonic. I can't do that. I can't. And he asks Hackleswell, what did you even take with you? What did you even take in your sack with you? You're saying you only have 2 food rations left. Why didn't you fill it up? Well, that's what the dice roll does, I guess. So he offers, of course, he goes, when you leave, you're going to be provided with full food rations completely. So I think that's a D6, so he'll go back up to a 6. I believe. I'll look back in the rules. But he says you're also going to sleep in a bed to help you sleep. And we'll work with you and give you herbal, medicinal herbs to help you sleep without being a sleep poison. So he is a mage. And let's say his wife is apothecary. His wife knows certain herbs and certain things that she can provide from the wild to help people with certain ailments. Hence the mint tea that she gave Hackleswell at the breakfast table. Olgrid asked, why did you take such a small traveling sack with you on your journey? And said, can you lay it on the table and see what you've taken? Maybe I could add stuff to it to help you on your journey. And he, gets the sack off of his, the back of the chair that he was sitting in and dumped it on the table. So Hackleswell was showing that, I have my notebook, my trusty notebook. I have my quill, the sleeping pelt, fur pelt, basically torch and flint and all this. And then he pulls out the folded blanket. And Olgrid puts his hand on the blanket and says, where did you get this blanket from? And Hackleswell was kind of weirded out a bit on why you're focusing on a blanket. But he said that Holomar and his wife made it for me. And Olgrid still has his hand on the blanket and shakes his head and kind of does a sound out of his mouth and goes, that clever little elf. And Hackleswell tells him, little? You're half the size of Holomar. Usually elves are really tall. And Olgrid goes, I'll remember that one, Hackleswell. But Olgrid continues and says, do you know what this blanket is? Remember that he is a mage. Or at least was a mage. Now he's a farmer. So Olgrid says again, do you know what this is, Hackleswell? No, I don't. They did tell me there was a secret around it. And if we remember from episode 1, Holomar replied that if you are in great danger, don't forget how comforting wrapping a blanket around you can be. So while his hand is still on the blanket, he tells Hackleswell, I feel a great force in this blanket. Then he asks, you said Holomar's wife made this blanket for you? And Hackleswell said, Holomar and his wife. And he shakes his head, no. This is Holomar's wife's work. He goes, there's very powerful force in this blanket. And Hackleswell is confused. He goes, how is that possible? And he goes, oh, Halamar's wife is not who she appears to be. She is extremely powerful mage. One of the most powerful in all the Misty Vale. Hackleswell is surprised. All these years I didn't know that. And then Ulgrid responds, well, how else do you think everyone stayed safe in the town when we all left for war? She protected all the old people and the children. And then Hackleswell goes, single-handedly? And Ulgrid goes, I'm not too sure of that, but I wouldn't put it past her. And now we're going to get to the last question. So Hackleswell asks, what's so secret about this blanket? And that is the last question. What is the secret of the blanket? We're going to roll on the inspiration table, a D20. And I'm also going to do something else too that I've never done yet. And I bought it and I've always wanted to try. So we're going to roll on the inspiration table. It's a D20. So I'm not too sure on action attribute thing. Maybe we'll do attribute, but regardless, I'm going to use all the words. And then I'm going to do something else as well after this. So let's see what we get. A 17. Stop, protected. So maybe attribute of protected. That sounds good. Okay, resource. So 17, let me write that down. Let's do it again. 4. Deliver, corrupted. Protect against the corrupted. Look at that. Look at that. 4. Protect against the corrupted. Okay, now something special I've never done. I don't know how this is going to work. Let's find out. So long ago, I bought this fishing for words. Basically, it's like kind of like Scrabble, but it's cubes. It's wooden cubes you throw, and you try to find the words in the cubes that you threw. So let's see what we find out. Maybe a special word. So here they are right here. So I never tried this before. Let's see what happens. Let's see what word I can come up with. Oh good, no blanks. I was worried about that. So keep in mind our inspiration. Protected, corrupted. Now here are the letters I rolled out. So let me know in the comments below what you come up with. What word you come up with. Let me know in the comments.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often?
Yes, I do.
I say, of course you don't.
Yeah, I do, I said. Trouser. Trouser. Now I came up with the word rigor. Let me know what you came up with. And this fits with protected and corrupted. So I do know what rigor means, but I still went to a dictionary website to find out a few things. So under severity, it means harsh inflexibility in opinion, temper, and judgment. So maybe this helps calm him down. So let's say if he rolls on his ability for mallard of ill-tempered, if he wraps the blanket around him, the anger subsides more quickly. The condition of angry. Another one is strictness, the quality of being unyielding or inflexible. So, so maybe, wow, this works with all the tarot cards. He just needs to calm down. He needs to focus on himself. The blanket will help him. All this ties into each other. This is why I love solo role-playing. Do you see this? This is why I love it. So this word is perfect. It ties into everything I've already drew, all those cards that I drew. It just ties into everything and how he's acting. So a quality of being unyielding or inflexible. So austerity, severity of life. So that also fits with him. So he's had a really hard life, a lot of wars. He became a hero and he went through tragic things in his life recently that he's still overcoming. So this word really acts accordingly to what he's going through. So then there's a condition that makes life difficult, challenging, or uncomfortable. You know, wrapping a blanket around yourself, like Halamar told him, can help with that. Especially extremity of cold. So if something's cold, you wrap the blanket around you. Then exactness, strict precision. That's another word or phrase for rigor. That works with him as well. So he always wants to be punctual. He wants to be on time. He wants everything done right. Maybe this will just calm him down a bit. this blanket. Then the site also says rigor mortis, and we don't want to be talking about that right now. We just started this campaign. We don't want to be talking about rigor mortis with Hackleswell. So continuing with the narrative now, Olgrid tells Hackleswell that Halamar's wife must have really cared about you a lot, because this blanket is sewn with love. There is powers within this blanket that will help you in your troubling times. When you need guidance, when you need focus, when you need your mental aptitude to be as high as possible, this blanket will help you and give you clearer thoughts. Then Hackleswell asks immediately, will this help me sleep? Olgrid looks at him and says, it can, but there's other things you need to do before this can help you sleep. Your life needs to get better. Your mind needs to get better. So you need to wear this blanket while traveling. And it will slowly help you with the ailments you have. It's not just putting it on yourself, Hackleswell, and it all gets better. It needs to be worn for a long duration. And that makes sense because Hackleswell put the blanket on him to try to go to sleep that night, but he couldn't sleep. He had nightmares. So it needs to be used a lot and worn a lot, and slowly will help him through his journey because it's going to be day soon, and Olgrid doesn't want his friend traveling anymore. He says you're staying the day, relaxing, and you're going to sleep in a proper bed before you continue the journey. So that's where we're going to end this episode. I hope you enjoy it. I got to write a few notes down. Happy gaming, everybody. Bye.